welcome back to Promoted. I'm your host, Felicity Fury, CEO and co-founder of We Aspire, and I'm joined by the incredible Renee Wooten, speaker, engineer, pilot, and all-round awesome chicka. Wanya, how are you, Renee? I'm on Gubby Gubby country today.
Amazing. Good morning, Felicity. I'm calling in from Burragam Lands today. I'm in beautiful Toowoomba. It is a sunny day. It's a really nice start to our weekend, and really, really excited to get into today's topic with you.
Yes, and we have a listener question. So thank you for those people who have been writing in, hitting up our DMs and sending us questions. Super pumped that people are getting lots from this podcast. So I'm going to read it out to make sure I get it spot on. So this listener has been having some challenges with an international coworker. They're a nice person, but they constantly want to spend time outside of work when they don't really want to do that themselves. So that's how can you handle this situation, and how do I set up some of those barriers between personal life and work life? And I did clarify with them, is it something that is maybe they're a new person to the location, they're an international team member, so perhaps they don't have very many friends in the area, or do they think it's a cultural thing? And their response was they probably think it's a bit of both. So a really tricky one. I'm so glad that this listener has asked it. Renee, what's your initial thoughts on this question?
I think this is such a great question. And my initial thoughts are, I suppose getting to know this person is going to be really important to kind of work through what their needs are and what they're trying to have met in the workplace, professionally, and then therefore socially outside of work. For me, I would probably start with just getting a bit of a sense around, is this person connected? What are they looking for from me as a manager? Are they just looking for a friend? And like any team, you need time to socialize, you need time to build trust. So for me, I think it's really important that you do spend time one-on-one socially with any team member that you have. But from the question, I'm getting the sense that potentially this is a one-on-one ask, and there might not be the broader group looped into the asks around socializing. So for me as a manager, if I had someone come up to me and ask to spend a lot of time with me outside of work socially, I probably want to sit down with them first to kind of get a bit of a sense around what's happening in their personal life. Are they doing well? What are they looking to get out of that socializing? And then from there, probably come up with a bit of a game plan. But before I jump into my game plan, what would you do, Felicity?
Oh, yeah. I think my default is I'm such a people pleaser. I would, go like, yeah, sure, let's hang out, and then regret it later. And I think it's a great question to think about being strategic around how you spend your time. And certainly my experience has been, as I've become a more experienced leader, I definitely have a lot less time, but also people have different values as well. So people might value you going to work and having those work relationships be strictly within work hours. So I think at the end of the day, it comes down to what are your values, what's important to you. And I'm also a really goal-orientated person. I know not everybody's like that, but for me, I think about, what are my goals? And so some of my goals, are personal too. So it could be meet people who are really challenging me and are interesting. So potentially someone like this could actually challenge me and could forward those goals. So I think having that context or that bigger picture in mind to begin with can be really helpful, no matter what the relationship is. I think I'd also give people kind of the benefit of doubt and the time of day. I think personally, if I've moved cities a couple of times and it can be tricky to make new friends. So I think having that first, always make time for someone to have that first coffee or really getting to know them, particularly like you said, if it's part of that relationship that you that is important in terms of delivering a project as well. So I think starting there with, let's have an initial catch up. I would, mostly be open to that, even if it's like a 10, it could just be a 10-minute thing. And then really finding out from that person what are their goals as well, to see if those goals are similar to you or aligned to you. That can be something that you can be aligned on going forward. Maybe that's too specific. I don't know if everyone listening is a goal person or that would be their focus, but I certainly use that as a lens to look at a lot of the things in my life, because goals and that vision and that direction is something that's personally really important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's really worked for me as well is understanding what drives people and what their expectations are. So I think starting there and then seeing how that aligns to your goals is a great start as well. But when I think about cultural considerations, the first thing that kind of comes to mind for me is what's kind of culturally acceptable, what's the norm for that individual, because once you understand that, then you can understand where they're coming from. So my sense would be that this person might have had an incredible relationship where that was the norm in their prior job, or, they build really close relationships with people and want to spend that time to actually get to know you better so that they understand how they fit into the team. They understand you and your dynamics as a manager. Or it could just be, that they really just want some extra support and some time to kind of get to know the new city, and you're the closest person to them. Like you may need to understand if they have any family or friends in the area as well, because that will really help you drive the sensitivity and just the empathy that you need to have as well for individuals and their circumstances. I know, based on the experience that I've had in my career, culturally, you've got people moving from different countries and with different life experience. So I know in Australia, a lot of First Nations people are the first in their families to go to university in this current generation, the first to have a corporate job potentially. They're really stepping into a zone that's not familiar to any of their family or friends. So what's important is giving people that wraparound support, which means you might need to go a bit above and beyond for some individuals to really make sure that they feel more supported. It's a more seamless experience for them, because they might not even know how to ask for help is the other thing. So I think, just empathizing with an individual, not looking at it like, you're responsible to look after them, but certainly outside of work, that is, but certainly leaning into that hard conversation around, what's happening for them, what are their expectations, do they need help, what support can you offer? And then jumping into that game plan that I kind of mentioned earlier, which is, right, let's say, for example, they don't have anyone, they're new to the area, and they just need, they just want some time with some new friends that they've made or some new people that they've just met. So my initial thought would be, well, okay, if I can't give them that time, then how does that fit into the time that I spend socializing with the broader team, and how can we bring that to the forefront and maybe just prioritize that over the next couple of months so that individual has more contact and more opportunity to see the city. Maybe it's time for an offsite, a team offsite, so you can go into the city and actually show this person around and have some time to socialize with the broader team to make them feel welcome. And then from an ongoing basis and perspective, I would then look at, do I need to increase my number of one-on-ones with this person for the short term as well, just to kind of, check in on them more regularly, make sure that they're adjusting well. And then once you kind of get a better feel for the individual and their needs, you can kind of work from there around how to adjust things.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And those needs can change over time. And so having those check-ins at strategic points, I think, really makes sense. And there could also be people who are better suited to help that person. Even recently, I was asked by someone to do a mock interview for a leadership role they were going for in the military. And I said, actually, probably the best person to do that conversation with would be my husband, Michael, because he has spent time in the military as an officer. And so it could be that they think that you're the right person to speak with, but actually there's, several other options. And I love that idea of having those offsites or different ways of connecting. And one thing that I've been really mindful of, particularly in the culture, I think, of engineering, it's very much like go out for a drink is the default, or do something that involves alcohol. And not everybody wants to do that. I know certainly being someone who is pregnant with 2 children, and then you don't want to be in that situation sometimes where it's awkward saying, oh, no, I'm not drinking now, particularly if you don't want to share that information, or you're trying to get pregnant and so you're not drinking. That could be awkward. Or I've got some really incredible Muslim friends who don't drink, or for whatever reason, people are not drinking. And so I think rethinking those defaults. Another way I found to be actually quite fun and effective is doing something like a social netball club, where it's a mixed netball group. It's just a bit of fun. It's on an evening, and it gives that kind of regular structure and regular rhythm to do something something that's a little bit different outside of work and it can be a bit silly. And I found that to be really helpful as well, I think, for breaking down some of those hierarchical aspects of a team when, you know, you're playing touch footy with like one example was of a consultancy where the guy, one of the guys in the team actually became the CEO, and he had really deep relationships with the team because they'd actually been playing touch football together for years. So, and there's other ways that we can think about it too, as well as those, you know, more traditional standard go have a beer after work type situations.
Yeah, I love that. And that's such a great idea, actually. It's something that I've been thinking of in my life and my role as a manager at the moment is, you know, how do you find those opportunities to socialize? So that's a really great recommendation, is actually getting out there and doing something active, team building. So yeah, awesome. Love that.
Can I share an example that backfired? I'd love your advice on that.
Absolutely. Go for it. Yeah.
So this is me being a consultant. I'm, you know, trying my hand at BD. I want to build these relationships with people. So I said to one of our clients, let's go out for breakfast. I go out for breakfast, like perfectly normal breakfast. I feel like breakfast is what would be the word? I don't know, doesn't come across, and this person was a male, doesn't come across as too like, let's go for a drink and awkward or whatever like that. Anyway, we have breakfast, and at the end he goes, oh, this was really nice. I'd like to do it again sometime. And he thought it was a date.
He didn't.
Not what I expected.
Oh, no.
Yes. So how would you handle that? Because I was totally caught off guard. I went back to my boss and I said, oh my gosh, this just happened. This is what I was trying to do. And then this is how it turned out. And he was, to his credit, great about it. And he said, look, if you want me to look after that client relationship, I'm happy to step in and help. But I felt so embarrassed when that happened. And yeah, this is young Felicity. So this is going back several years. Have you had anything like that happen to you, Renee? How would you handle it kind of when it backfires, when you're trying to get to know someone?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some instances where people have tried to curate, you know, business into potential dates. But I think I've just been very clear that as soon as, you know, there's any sort of, you know, mention or leniency towards that, I immediately just go, oh no, you know, this is my, you know, relationship situation if I'm in one, or if I'm not, you know, thanks so much. That's, you know, a beautiful compliment, but I'm not interested, and let's just kind of keep this professional. I think like if you kind of, you know, follow up and just say thanks so much and make that person still feel valued, because they've put themselves out there, right? And
that's true.
Yeah. For anyone. So, and if there's a misinterpretation as well, you know, it's both of your responsibility to get that clarity and make no assumptions. So yeah, I think, you know, if I had that as a young person, I can see that would be incredibly intimidating, and just like, you probably wouldn't have the confidence to be like, sorry, this is a misunderstanding and we are not on the same page here. But yeah, as I've grown older, I think I'd be more than comfortable to just say, hey, thanks so much. Lovely of you to ask, but unfortunately, that's not where I see things going.
Years ago, Renee, that would have been so helpful. I think I was single at the time, which also put me off guard as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think in general, you know, coming back to the question and what we're addressing for the write-in that we had, again, thanks so much for writing into us. It's awesome to have these questions. One thing that I did just want to land on was that as a manager and a leader of a team, it really is your responsibility to lean into these sorts of conversations. And I think Felicity and I were having a conversation very recently about the fact that job descriptions don't actually tell you what your responsibility is in terms of leading a team. It might say lead a team, but then there's not necessarily great training to back that up. There's not necessarily a list of, you know, follow this and you will get the best outcome for your team. So you know, when it comes to meeting the needs of your team, it is personal and it is professional. And it's a very fine line to kind of put boundaries around where that starts and ends. But it comes back to what you're prepared to do as a leader and getting clear on that. And then how you can meet the needs of your person and make sure that their dignity and their feelings and I guess there's a level of empathy in your approach to how you kind of make those boundaries clear is really needed.
Absolutely. I think particularly when it comes to the cultural side of things, we don't know everyone's cultural background and what some of those cultural norms are. Even, living in Brisbane, how people dress walking down the main street compared to Melbourne or Sydney is a little bit different. And so I think having those open conversations around expectations, and even within organizations, cultures can be different as well. So I think being really open about that and upfront, and it can take time to actually build and establish those relationships and set those norms. So I think having upfront conversations around that is the responsibility of the leader. And you can also be leading if you're a team member as well. If you're noticing there is some tension or in the culture, or things are going along and people are not having their expectations met, or they're a bit different from how things are, then as a team member, you could either say something to your leader, or you can have those conversations as well with team members to have them feel supported. And it's a great way as well for you to practice leading, even though you don't have that leadership role within the team. Love this question, Renee. I think it's so helpful that people are thinking through how our podcast can help them, and we love answering your questions. So if you do have one, hit us up on LinkedIn, add us, follow, send us a DM. We would love to hear from you. Renee's all over Instagram. Renee, what's your Instagram handle for people who are listening and they can DM you there as well?
Yes, come find us at Instagram. We may be on TikTok in the short term as well. We are promoted_podcast. So super easy to find. Reach out. And thanks again for writing in. This was a great question.
Awesome. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.